Hey everybody out there, how's it going today? Guess what I'm going to do? Well, you probably saw by the title already. I'm finally figured out a way to do this Coolidor video. So I'm in DFW right now, and I'm going to spend the next 2 or 3 days most of the time in a hotel. So I thought, hey, I'm going to throw my cooler in, see if I can get a couple of videos in here. So this may turn into 1 or 2 videos. I'm not for sure exactly how long this will how long it'll take. So if I see that we're going too long, I have a place in mind where I want to split it. So if I need to do that, if not, I'll just keep going. So anyway, I'm going to show you how to set up, or how I set up a Coolidor. Let me put it that way. And a Coolidor is where you take an ice chest or a cooler, whatever, a regular old igloo cooler. You don't want a styrofoam one, but a regular old igloo cooler. Turn it into a humidor. They have very good seals on them, and so they hold the humidity in very well. And of course, they hold the temperature in. Now, if you're in extremely hot, extremely cold, if you're in, say, the south part of the United States, do not air condition your house. It's going to get too hot in there because you really need to keep them at, of course, everybody says the ideal temperature humidity is 70 degrees, 70% humidity. You could let it run up to 72 degrees if you want. You can let it get down to 65 degrees if you want. The big thing you want to be careful on storing cigars is, one, letting it get too hot, especially with too much humidity, because that's perfect environment for tobacco beetles to start hatching and breeding, and they get to chew up all your smokes before you get to smoke them, and you don't want that. And so, and you can, as long as you keep your humidity under control, you can let them get up to probably 72. I don't like them to get much above 72. I really like to keep them at 70 or lower, and you don't want a lot of temperature fluctuations. You don't want it at, if you could keep it at 65 degrees 100% of the time, you'd be okay. What you don't want is 60 degrees today, 70 tomorrow, 65 the next day, 75 the next day. You want to try to keep it as, fairly even as you can. Humidity level, I like mine at about 65. I think 70 is just a little bit too moist for me. I like them at 65, 68. Once they start going up into the 70% range, again, that's where I'm not too fond of I'm not too fond of the cigar. They seem to not burn quite as well for me when they get above the 70% or 60, even 68%. Once you start getting above 70% humidity, especially if you let your temperature get up there to 70, 72%, not only do you now have the opportunity for the tobacco beetles to start hatching and coming alive, now you're getting a very good environment to start growing mold. And so once I show you how I set up my cooler, my Coolidor, and a lot of people will set up a Tupperware, which I keep a little Tupperware container in my cooler here as well, and I'll show you why, where, when, what I do with it, why I have it in there. And so I'll show you that. I'll talk about the humidity, how I maintain my humidity, why I use certain types of humidity, humidification, and why I do not use certain types of humidification. So anyway, I'm going to pause this guy, flip it around, and show you my cooler. I've got it set up on a table here. It's empty, and I'll show you how I set it up, and then we'll go from there. Be back in just a jiffy. Okay, so here's a cooler that I use as a Coolidor or a humidor, just a big one. And as you can see here, that is an igloo. The brand doesn't make a difference as long as you got a good plastic cooler. Again, styrofoam is not going to work for this. The size of it really doesn't matter as long as it's big enough to hold your cigars. Now typically on even a humidor, a desktop humidor, cedar one, a Coolidor, Tupperware, whatever you're storing your cigars in, it is best to keep those. I say it's best. They maintain their humidity level best when you keep them at about 75% full. So I would not recommend going out and getting a big, huge, maybe 100-quart cooler and then storing one box of cigars in there. You're going to have a harder time fighting the humidity. It's gonna go up and down and up and down. You're just always gonna constantly trying to maintain the humidity. So if you have to, get a couple of smaller coolers or even a couple of smaller humidors. But try to maintain your humidor where you've, I would say, 75 to 80% full. And you can go all the way. I don't like to keep mine at 100%. I don't like to fill them up any fuller than about 75, 80%. And then I'll go get another humidor, another cooler. So here on to set up this cooler, I'll pop the lid, make it a little bit easy. Again, just a standard old cooler in there. First thing you got to do is when you get a new cooler, you got to clean that thing out because it is going to have the new cooler smell. It's going to smell a lot like that plastic in there. So I do this out in the yard with the garden hose. If you have a huge, work sink in the garage, that might work, but you're going to need, in my opinion, you need to get it outside anyway to do this because the sun needs to take a part of this. And so I would just rinse the whole thing down, spray it down, high pressure nozzle, whatever, just spray the sucker down. Then I take a little bit of regular dish soap. And then I may have, just a couple of inches of water in the bottom, put a little bit of dish soap in there. I'll take a sponge or a cloth. I don't like to take something really like a scouring pad because I don't want to scratch up the inside. I don't think that's going to affect anything, but I'm just a tiny bit OCD when it comes to that. I want it nice and smooth in there. But then I will take that sponge or that cloth and I will rub and scrub it down. And don't forget, in all the hinges areas around the seal. Now, again, it's not that we need to clean the seal so it seals better. It's going to have a good seal. We want to get as much of that plastic smell because I don't want that. I don't want to be, when I light up my nice cigar, I want to relax. I don't want to taste plastic cooler. And so I want to taste the cigar. So I rub it down and scrub the bottom and the corners, every little nook and cranny. I just really rub it down. That strap, if it's got it, I rub it down. Then dump it out, hose it down, rinse it down 2 or 3 times, whatever, get all the soap out. I will not dry it. I'll leave it damp, and there's going to be water in there. And then I take baking soda, your regular old Arm & Hammer baking soda. I like to, whether it's like in the little cardboard box that you put like in your fridge or your freezer, I like to get the big package that I use as like additive to laundry. Then I'll just take some and I'll just sprinkle it in there. And then I'll take my washcloth and start rubbing that in. And it makes kind of like a little bit of a paste. And if it gets too thin or too dry, you might need to add a little bit more water. But then I just make that paste and I start rubbing it in everywhere. Rub the top, rub the grooves, again, rub the strap, rub the seals. I just rub everything down. Don't forget those corners. They may be kind of hard to get to. If it's got, these things in there, rub them down. Be sure you get those edges. Just rub the whole thing down. Massage that kind of paste, that Arm & Hammer paste in there. And then rinse the sucker out. Again, 2 or 3 times. Make sure it's 100% rinsed. If you have to, kind of move the lid so you can get up in the hinges. Sometimes you may have to close it, turn it around, and rinse the hinge back here. Rinse your seals. Make sure you've got everything rinsed out of there. And then I like to leave it sitting out in the sun. So I will take it a lot of times, set it up like that, and then you can dry it from here if you want, but I like to set it up, get it angled the best way possible so I can get as much sun in there, and I let it sit in the sun for whatever, 2 or 3 hours until it is 100% dry. Then I will take like a little Tupperware Rubbermaid dish or something. I like to get one that's maybe 2 or 3 inches tall and 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 inches long. It's better to have, you want a lot of surface area in it. I don't want like a cup. I want something that's got a lot of surface area. And then I will set that in the bottom, fill that container with your Arm & Hammer, and I say Arm & Hammer, whatever brand you get, baking soda. And again, I don't want, now I don't want it on the plastic. I want it in the container. So I'll fill my little Rubbermaid container, set it in there again. I want a lot of surface area. And then I close it up and I come back and check it in about 2 days. Yeah, it may take you a week or two to set this up. Depends. So, and if you're, sometimes I get antsy and I can't wait. I'll come check it in 24 hours. But when you come back to it in 24, 48 hours, pop it open, take your baking soda out, set it aside, and give it a good sniff. And as a matter of fact, that smells like cigar humidor right there, because that's what I store my cigars in. You do not want a plastic smell in there. If it smells like plastic still in there, you get that. Even for me, if I get the tiniest whiff of plastic smell in there, I start the whole process and do it over again. With the rinse, with the dish detergent and the cloth, with the Arm & Hammer paste, with the rinse, with the sun, with the tub of Arm & Hammer in there, close the lid, let it set for a couple of more days. On every single one I've ever set up, I've only had to do it once. I have heard of a couple people saying they've had to do it twice. If you have to do it 3 times and after the 3rd time it still smells like that, you're probably going to have to get a different cooler. But I've never heard of anybody having to do that. And so now, once you can smell, you want a neutral smell. You don't want any plastic smell, because again, you don't want that. You don't want at least I don't want a plastic tasting cigar. And so now we're about ready. Well, we're ready to load it with cigars and start maintaining our humidity. So I'm going to stop this video. This will be part 1. I'm going to come back for part 2. We'll load it up and then we'll get her going. And I may even do another video talking about not only humidification, but hygrometers and different stuff like that. And I'll come back and see you here in a minute.